All right. Well, welcome to our third webinar in the Financial Fireside Chat series. Tonight's topic is fair play, which is I look at it as a time management, household management system. So we'll get into kind of give you the background, a little bit of research related to the development of this program, and then how to actually use this in terms of your management of your home and care for your family members. So, fair play is a system that helps families create a fairer system for taking care of the home, family members, and schedules. I'll probably be letting people in as we go here. It really helps to create that balance and efficiency that is needed to be able to have balance between work and home. And so I'm going to go over some research that helps to support the development of this program. Um, in the 90s, Arlie Hochschild did some research and came up with the idea called the second shift. And the second shift is really the household and childcare duties that follow the day's work for pay outside the home. So if you think about our first shift is our work day, 9 to 5, we can say, whatever your work day is. And then the second shift is when you come home. And whether you have children or a partner or however whatever your family makeup is, there's always things that need to be done to take care of them. And in many cases, unfortunately, women often bear the kind of the burden of those household and childcare duties. So as I said, the second shift is a term that was coined and popularized by sociologist Arlie Hochschild. And as I already mentioned, it refers to the household and childcare duties that follow the day's work for pay outside the home. And both men and women experience the second shift, but women tend to have most of this responsibility. So if you think about the second shift is that unpaid work that's done at home after doing the paid job. And so I found a video of Arlie Hochschild explaining her research. And so it's a pretty short video, so I'm going to show that here.
Only 18% of them worked outside the home, and only a few jobs. You could be a maid, you could be a teacher, you could be a secretary. You couldn't take a loan out in your own name. It was another world, culturally, economically, politically. And now to think where we are, where women are half the labor force in every kind of job. So what a revolution. And so I decided to step in to see how this revolution was going. Was it compatible with happy families? How does it fit the workplace as we know it? How did it fit what the government thought it ought to be doing to make American families function well? I first got the idea of a second shift from a woman I was talking to who said, I go to work, I'm on. I come home from work, the kids need to be fed, they need to be put into a bath and put to bed. I've got to get lunches ready for tomorrow, put the laundry in, on. Then I go to sleep and I wake up. And she said, life at home has become a second shift. What I really wanted to do was find out, do women work a second shift? How does it work out? Who does what at home? And how do they feel about what they do? What I did for a book I came to call The Second Shift was to first go to a Fortune 500 company and get every 13th name, sent out a short little questionnaire. Would you be willing to be interviewed? People who volunteered, I sat down with in the living room and asked if they would be willing for me to really make a case study of them. And I was studying women married to husbands, both working full-time, who had kids 6 and under, the crunch. At first, I just observed and positioned myself as the family dog, someone just hanging out. And what I began to notice is that women actually spent more time dealing with the children and the house. They were more likely to do two things at once. They would be folding the laundry and on the phone. Guys would do things one at a time more often. What I was finding is that women were going home to husbands who said, "Sweetheart, love to have you working so long as you can do most of the housework and raising the children." And they went out to jobs where the boss was saying, "Susie, love to have you here so long as you're here at 8 on the dot and leave 5:36. Really a workplace that had originally been designed for men with stay-at-home wives. And then she went into a culture in which the government said, "Oh, you're on your own. I'm not going to help." They wanted very much to live happy family lives, but something was getting in the way, and what it was disagreements about what a man's role and a woman's role was. And I found that the happiest families were those who did come to some agreement and who did share the second shift. This revolution in the transformation of women had led to fast-changing women and slow-changing everything else. And it was creating strains, and the family became the shock absorber of those strains. So what looked like a personal reason for unhappiness or even divorce, I began to see as a result of a larger stalled revolution. And I set about trying in a way to look for solutions to unstall that revolution. I went to another Fortune 500 company, and that was supposed to be very avant-garde in offering a lot of family-friendly policies. I was looking at job sharing, at good part-time work with benefits. I was looking at career sabbaticals and flex time and flex place. In other words, for both men and women, were there jobs out there where they could really put their heart in it and do a good job, but it gave flexibility for balancing work with family. The workplace that I was studying was amenable to more flexibility, but it laid on long hours. And that was true nationally, that middle-class jobs were getting longer and longer, taking more time. And working class jobs were not each one job taking longer, but people were often working two jobs. That meant there was less time to be with your kids and tend to your home. If we're talking about work-family balance and the unstalling, the stalled revolution, I think we have to look fundamentally at ourselves as a society. In this day and age, there's a lot of instability in the economy. And in the workplace, managers are leading workers to cross-train each other so that you can move from one job to another. You develop multiple competences. I think we need the same thing at home, that men need to be able to do what women have done and women do what men have done.
All right, so the second shift is kind of hopefully helps to maybe set the stage for what we're talking about with the fair play system. And it's really just kind of trying to figure out a way to help balance that. And I want to, as I get started, I want to preface that I'm looking at, when I say families, I'm looking at and kind of referring to all families, no matter what their makeup is, if it's partners, if it's with children, no children, if it's generational families, kind of whatever it is. It's not just, I want to just kind of say that ahead of time. And in some cases, I mean, as we listen to this video, a lot of the emphasis is on, men aren't doing something and women are doing something. And so, and that isn't the case in all families, because we all have kind of a different makeup. But as we look at this fair play system, we're looking at being able to make sure that it's equitable and that everyone really is being able to kind of use their skills and feel good, and also still feel they have some freedom to be able to do the things that they want to do. So COVID also had an impact on how families function and their overall well-being. With COVID, during COVID, and then these years after, have resulted in higher rates of mental health challenges and different relationship issues between families, having to either work from home or being at home because the children, or with the children, because they were not able to go to school, trying to balance that. Um, uh, it really increased a lot of emotional issues and mental health issues because of the fear and the uncertainty of what the health risks were, the disruption in everybody's daily life, and then that strain on family relationships. And as a research study found that in 2021, 33% of people reported not being able to complete their necessary housework after their paid work, compared to 22% in 2020. So just kind of, that creates that additional level of stress and additional level of kind of maybe anxiety and then strains on those relationships. So COVID really just changed how we think about work and that work life. And those boundaries between work and home became very blurred depending on what your situation was. So the Fair Play Policy Institute also conducted some research, and what they found was that, and this once again is balanced or a little unbalanced in terms of that relationship or the equitable distribution of home tasks, but mothers reported being responsible for 73% of cognitive labor. And so that's like the conceptualizing what needed to be done and then planning what need to be done. And their mothers were also responsible for about like 65% of the physical labor or the execution of those tasks compared to their partners. So kind of that mental load is a little heavy in addition to that physical load. So the impact of holding the cognitive load, or that planning process, specifically impacts individuals' mental health. So when mothers were engaged in more cognitive household behaviors, kind of that um, planning process more than their partners, they reported more depressive symptoms. They reported more symptoms of exhaustion, being overwhelmed, and burnout. And they were reported also worse physical health, and in terms of, and just kind of worse overall mental health. In terms of the relationship quality, when mothers held more household tasks, they were significantly less satisfied with their relationship with their partner, and they're also perceived more stress. Now, we're talking mothers, but we can also say um, um, wives, or maybe the partner who takes on more of the household tasks. It doesn't necessarily have to be the mother, but because of maybe the inequity of the task division, that person who is more responsible for those tasks are experiencing some an impact on their overall well-being. So as we move into the next, thinking about what is fair play. And so I received a copy of this book, and it looks like this. Let somebody in here, a number of years ago. And I kind of had it on my shelf. And then when I picked it up and started looking at it, I realized it was a book selection pick that Reese Witherspoon does for her her book club that she does. And so I found a short video of Reese explaining what fair play is. And so I'm gonna show that. So I'm gonna stop sharing so I can get back to my video here.
Hi, everybody. Happy October. Does everybody have their pumpkins yet? I already have one, maybe two. Okay, maybe I have like 6. Really excited.
Oops, sorry about that.
Hi, everybody. Happy October. Does everybody have their pumpkins yet? I already have one, maybe 2. Okay, maybe I have like 6. Really excited because it's time to announce the October book pick, and it is Fair Play by Eve Rodsky. Okay, who out there, when they say goodbye and leave their job and say goodnight, everybody, has a whole other list of things that they have to do when they go home? Is that you? Am I talking to you? This book creates solutions for you to run your household sort of like a team. And partners take different cards, which are different responsibilities in the family, and it actually creates a better, more fair living environment. I'm so excited about this book because it talks about things that I've never read about in a book before, or even, the conversation that you're always having with your friends about like the division of labor in your household and who does what. So talking about division of things in your home, like for instance, who takes care of the dogs? Okay. In my family, I'm in charge of the dogs. The minute Eve explained to me that she had interviewed 500 couples to find out the way that all couples worked, I was fascinated and completely excited to read this book. I found myself highlighting so many parts of this book. I really feel like it's one of those books that you just read and you underline and you share it with a girlfriend. So there's a term in this book that is my new favorite term, which is unicorn space. So you got to read the book just to find out what is your unicorn space. You got to read along with me. October book. It's so good. I want to know what you guys think.
All right. So that was just kind of a little snippet of what fair play is, and I'm going to go into more detail here as we to talk about it. So hopefully you've kind of got a general idea. It is the fair play system is a system with kind of a system of chores. The author, it's really interesting. She just started writing down all of the tasks that needed to be done to take care of the home and to take care of the family, and basically came up with a huge list. And she whittled it down to 100 different tasks, which we'll get into. So with the fair play system, it helps to clearly define roles and expectations about who does what in order to take care of the home. A lot of it talks about just like a couple or the partners dividing up the tasks, but you could easily, if you have older children and tasks that they can easily complete or that would help them to develop a skill, you can easily pull in the children to be a part of that. It gives the person who has the card essentially permission to take the lead on the tasks. It gives more ownership of the work to the individual who has that task. If the system kind of works for the family, it gives time to pursue more of the friendships and those personal interests outside of your role as your partner or parent. A happier partnership endures, and there's more fulfilling and rewarding parenting experiences, and it helps to boost your brain plasticity and your overall longevity. So something to keep in mind is it's not a kind of a partner versus partner competition. It's a strategy to help balance time, skills, and knowledge to better manage the home and care responsibilities for the family. So a few kind of ideas or concepts that are a part of this system is the first one I'm going to talk about is CPE. It's conception, planning, and execution. So I talked a little bit about that in um, the research for that was done by the Fair Play Policy Institute. That conception and planning is cognitive skills, and then the execution is the physical activity. So with conception, it's thinking about what needs to be done and kind of what is that overall need. And I'll give an example to kind of hopefully make it a little bit more tangible. The planning is, thinking about how and what is required to get the task done completely. And then the execution is getting the task done and being able to meet the expectations and the requirements that have been discussed in advance for that specific task. Another thing that the author talks about is invisible work. And what invisible work is that conception and planning, where it's that needs to be done in order to accomplish the task, but it's not like anyone can necessarily see you do it. And a lot of times that conception and planning, it doesn't have to happen every time the task needs to be done. So my example, in order to kind of get an idea of how the CPE is implemented, is preparing the weekday evening meals. So in order if and I'm going to talk about the cards. I'll actually show you here one of the cards. So the cards just look like this, and oh, it might be hard to see. And it just shows you, tells you what the task is. So if the task is to prepare a weekly evening meal, then the conception part of that is actually planning the menu. So making a decision about, what are we having for supper tonight? So if the plan is to have tacos, then or if I'm gonna have tacos for supper, okay? And you think about how much time it's going to take. Maybe you think about if there's other activities that people have to get to, and is that maybe the appropriate meal or that you're going to prepare. The planning involves making the list or putting the items on the grocery list, and then purchasing the food. And just as a note, the person who is actually preparing the evening meal isn't necessarily the person who's buying the groceries, but the responsibility is to get the items on the grocery list of what you need, making sure that you have those supplies on hand, and then the execution is actually preparing that meal. So a lot of that stuff, we all prepare evening meals all the time, and sometimes I'm very fortunate. My husband takes on this task, and the reason he does a really good job is because he plans ahead. He purchases those groceries, and he gets that taken care of. But we all know that sometimes if we don't have that plan in place, and you've had a long day at work, you're coming home and you're tired and you can't think, and you're maybe experiencing some decision fatigue because you've made so many decisions throughout the day that last thing you want to think about is making something for supper. And maybe that happens on occasion, but we want to make sure maybe your goals and your values are to not have that happen on a regular basis. So that conception, planning, and execution is an important aspect of each of the um, different tasks. The next concept is minimum standard of care. And with that, it's looking at why do we do the things the way we do them? And what are our values associated with that? And are we creating a set of standards that we want to model for our children and help them to develop skills, but also help them buy into it? And then when looking into the future, what is the picture I want to see within our family frame? So essentially, the minimum standard of care is kind of your why you're doing it and maybe why you're doing it at a certain level. So, an example is taking out the garbage. Uh, that's a task that has to happen on a fairly regular basis. And so thinking about the minimum standard of care with taking the task of taking out the garbage, think about what is it that we want for our family. And we want to be able to live in a clean house, and we want our children to value cleanliness. We want to trust each other to create a clean environment in our family. So that minimum standard of care for garbage, maybe it is the rule in the family is as soon as the bin is full, it goes out. Or maybe it's every night the garbage goes out. Or maybe it's, every Tuesday. Or you take out the garbage, because it is, garbage man's coming the next day. Garbage pickup is the next day. But you determine, what is that minimum standard of care? Some families, maybe, what they want is it can be overflowing, or they buy a really big bin, so they only have to take the garbage out one time. Or maybe it's, no, the family standard is they don't want to see a lot of garbage, so they have a smaller bin, and so they take it out every week or every day. So that minimum standard of care is going to be set, per person, per family, per couple, and it's really focused on your values. And so when I start talking about the tasks, you want to think about determining the expectations for that task, and that will help you consider that minimum standard of care. So, with every type of system, there's always rules in play. And I'm just gonna kind of point out the book one more time, the Fair Play book. It explains everything in much more detail than what I'm giving you today. I'm really just kind of giving you an overview of it. With just so you get a sense for how it works, but there's a lot more detail and a lot more examples in the book. So first of all, there's 4 rules, and the first one is all time is created equal. So the question that you and your partner you want to talk about is, how do you value your time? And when we're thinking about the second shift and the data that I presented from the Fair Play Policy Institute, studies find that women are more likely to do the tasks to care for the home and for those family members. But we have to remember that time is finite. We can't create more hours, more minutes throughout the day. And even if women take on more of those tasks, it doesn't mean that partners need to kind of keep track of the time they spend on home and family care to make sure that it's equal. One thing that is stressed with this system is that equal doesn't always mean equitable. So we're not saying with this system that everybody spends the exact same amount of time on on the tasks throughout the week or at night. It's because there's more involved in it than just kind of the time it takes. So think about taking out the garbage. Depending on how far your garbage is away from your house, that can just take minutes to take care of that. But if the other person is responsible for doing the dishes, that's going to take a few more minutes to handle. But both are very important and need to be taken care of. When we're thinking about kind of how we value our time, we want to develop an awareness of how we're thinking about the value of our time and the tasks that we can complete during that time. How we use our time is going to impact how we're able to care for ourselves and others. Because kind of one of the overall purposes of this program is to be able to kind of more efficiently use your time so that you have more time for fun and more time for self-care and more time for that the unicorn that I'll get to in a minute that was mentioned in the video. The second rule is to reclaim your right to be interesting. So this is where we talk about the unicorn space. And so if you think about, if you feel like you're kind of in a slump where, all you do is work, come home, take care of the house and kids, go to back to work, come home, take care of the house and kids, and you're maybe just exhausted. And so maybe you used to do some type of crafts, or maybe you used to compete in like maybe marathons or do some other type of sport activity. Maybe you used to sing and play the guitar, and you're feeling like you just don't have time to do that anymore. And so you're feeling like, I'm just kind of a dull, boring person because I can't do any of those interesting things that I used to be able to do. So the unicorn space is an opportunity for you to start doing some of those things where you start to feel interesting again. You can make space for this activity once you have implemented and kind of have those daily grind activities, the things that have to be done all the time. If you can get it to a point where it doesn't take up all of your time, so you have that space. So creating more space in your life can help you to become more interesting and really help work on that self-worth and help you feel better about yourself. So rule number 3 is to start where you are now. So with you and your partner, think about what do you need to either renegotiate, rebalance, or re-energize, and thinking about, are there any patterns that need to change? Some things that, are a habit, and then or you just do it that way because you've always done it that way. Is there maybe time to just switch things up a little bit? So communication with your partner is a key aspect of this program. You both need to want to be able to invest your time and energy to implement the fair play system. And our 4th rule is to establish your values and standards. So some considerations is like not everything is important. You want to choose with intention, and you want to live the life that you truly want. Because we want to be able to, or we learn from experience, observation, and modeling. And so our experiences and kind of how we've learned are going to frame those values and those standards. And if, maybe you're just not happy with how things are right now, kind of step back to what's most important to us and what is it that I want to be, how do I want to be able to live my life, and how do I want to be able to raise my children, and what values do I want to raise for them. All right, so we're gonna get into the fair play cards, and if I'm gonna upload these cards again. If you don't happen to have let's see, the file that I sent earlier today in my email, this will just help you kind of to follow along a little bit. You should be able to download these so you can look at them. So with the fair play cards, there are 5 suits. And you can see here they're home, out, caregiving, magic, wild. And then there are the unicorn space. So all of the cards might not be in play for your family. There's 60 cards that are possibly in play if your family is a couple, just 2 people, 2 adults. And then there's 40 additional cards that would be in play if you have children. And I say possibly in play because some of them may not, it's not something you do, it's not something you want to add, and that's okay. I mentioned that there's 100 cards, and really, so that means there's 100 tasks, and really you don't want to have any more than 85. So you want to kind of weed some of those out, and we'll talk about how that works as we go through this. So I'm going to talk about each of the different kind of what are the tasks that are in the sets of cards. And so in the home suit, it is focused on tasks that that you need to complete in order to run the home. So things like, as you can see, child care helpers, cleaning, dishes, dry cleaning, all that type of stuff. and there's more in this shift, but I'm just going to take a minute here. We talked about the CPE, so the consideration, the planning, and then the execution. And so with each of these tasks, I have kind of an example of the CPE. So with childcare helpers, you have to consider the schedule, the payment, and then the kind of the delegation of the responsibilities if you're hiring somebody for the childcare helper. Um, and you want to think in terms of planning, when are they going to come, what time, how are they going to get there? And then the execution is actually communicating with them about what their tasks and their responsibilities would be. So in a sense, the CPE is really just kind of thinking ahead about what needs to be done. With cleaning, that's a huge responsibility and it has to be done on a regular basis. This is something that with the cards, you want to switch them back and forth. The same person shouldn't have to hold the cleaning card all the time. But also thinking about things like having the cleaning supplies on hand, knowing when you're going to clean, what tasks are going to be completed and when, and then actually executing them. So we've got dishes, dry cleaning, taking out the garbage, which I already talked about, the groceries, and home furnishings. So some additional home suits are, or cards in the home suit is making sure the home goods and supplies, making sure those are available. So these tie in with the cleaning card because you can't do a lot of cleaning if you don't have the laundry detergent and that type of thing. I guess that's more with the laundry. Home maintenance. So noticing that the repairs have to be done, calling a repair person or doing the repair yourself, or um, having the skills in order to be able to complete the repair on your own. Um, Taking care, paying for your home. If you're purchasing a home or you're renting, paying that bill, making sure you have that insurance. Also in the home suit, we've got hosting. I've already mentioned laundry, lawn care and plants, and mail and mail kind of what do you do once the mail is in the house? If you just leave it piled on a table, you might miss some bills, or you might miss an invitation, or you might just get stacked up so much that the table is always cluttered with mail. So kind of making a plan for what's going to happen when it comes into the house. We've got meals. So this is what's considered a daily grind. There's multiple daily grinds, and these cards are ones that we do on a regular basis. And so there's cards for the different types of meal prep. And then there's also, and that needs to be some collaboration with the person who's the grocery card holder. Doesn't have to be the same person, but it is because that's kind of a big task, but there has to be some communication between the two. So we've got memories, money manager, kind of storage, and then tidying up and organizing. And donations, kind of making, who's going to do what with the stuff. All right, so that's the home suit. And so there's things on here. There's quite a few cards in this suit, but thinking about as if you have the actual cards and you're playing with the cards, you would go through and decide what you would actually keep and what you would just set aside and not use. So kind of a good example for me is the dry cleaning. Like my husband and I we don't have stuff that needs to go to the dry cleaner. So we would just take out that card and not worry about it. Um, Same with, there was another one here that I was thinking of. Well, the school lunch card, because our son is on his own, so we don't do school lunches. And then, so those are things that we wouldn't, our cards we wouldn't deal with. The next category is the out suit. And this is activities where you're kind of that take place outside of the home. And it's things like work that's required to make life outside of the home possible, and kind of helps you to really just be out in the world. So these are things like that auto care, maintenance, registration, car washes, insurance, birthday celebrations for other kids. So if you have kids who get invited to birthday parties, thinking about a gift, thinking about that transportation, putting it into the schedule so um, who's responsible for getting the your child to that birthday party. A calendar keeper, coming up with that system that's going to work for everybody. Having cash, being able to pay bills, charity, community service, and good deeds. This is for adults. That civic engagement and cultural enrichment, electronics and IT. So, this is definitely a task my husband takes care of. He manages the cell phones. He deals with the Wi-Fi. He makes sure we have the right chargers and the internet and all those different types of things. Extracurricular non-sport activities and sport activities. So this is either for the children or for you, looking at what equipment is needed, transportation to the activities, and setting up that schedule, kind of thinking about that schedule and collaborating with the person that's working with the calendar. First aid, like packing and unpacking, either for local travel, for local, just, going around town, or longer term travel. So thinking if you have a young child and you still have a diaper bag, making sure there's actually diapers in there, that they've been restocked. Checking those school bags to see if there's anything that needs to be taken care of or that your children are missing. Um, Someone's keeping track of like points, miles, and coupons, and then someone doing returns and dealing with store credit. So it continues with um, like what to do during school breaks, or either non-summer breaks or summer breaks, kind of making a plan for what your children are going to do, school forms, social plans for couples, transportation, travel, tutoring, coaching, and then weekend plans. The next suit is for caregiving, and this is going to look different depending on what your family makeup is. But this really just focuses on caring for the needs of your children, family, friends, and yourself. So thinking about, bathing and grooming for your children, knowing that those tasks and the responsibilities are going to change as the children grow and develop, making sure that, for the female, that caring for her beauty and her wardrobe, setting a bedtime routine, care of clothes and accessories, dental care, diaper pottying. That's one of those cards that I can put away because we don't have to deal with that anymore. Estate planning, life insurance, and then just friendship and social media. Then we also have grooming and wardrobe for the male, and thinking about health insurance, homework, school projects. I could read each of these, those pets, like who's going to take care of the pets and really be responsible for that. Last few, in the caregiver suit, transitions in school, and this can be like, in the morning, after school, pick up, drop off. But it can also be preparing your children for going into another grade, moving into a different school building, and that type of thing. Self-care for both him and her, any special needs and mental health concerns for the children, and then teacher communication. The magic suit is where the focus is on making connections, building relationship, and making memories. And so this really should be, fun and exciting. But a lot of times, some of these activities can become draining and overwhelming and really just not even having a time for them. So as you look through this list, you can see that just a lot of it has to do with spending time with family, and building those relationships. And as we think back to, thinking about a family's values, this is where maybe some of these cards are not gonna be used because there might be things that you're just not going to take care of or deal with because one of the cards can meet the needs that and another card isn't necessarily needed. So really it's just spending time. The discipline and screen time is setting boundaries. To help keep your children safe and to teach them different positive behaviors. The magic suit also involves gifts for family and VIPs. VIPs are like teachers, um, I'm drawing a blank, like coaches, maybe piano teacher, those types of things. Your boss, your coworkers. There's a card for asking hard questions, doing holiday cards, doing holiday decorations, informal education. Magical beings. I like that one because that's helping to foster the dreams and the imagination of your children. And then there's always that marriage and romance. So making time for a date night where it's child-free time. And so we've got some other things that middle of the night comfort, partner coach, showing up and participating in the children's events, spirituality. Like I know it's going to look different for everybody. Thank you notes, values and good deeds, and then watching. And what that means is really, you know, keeping tabs on your children, and it's when they're young and in diapers and at that baby toddler stage, part of it's their safety. As they get older, watching your children, knowing kind of what they're doing and who they're hanging out with, what they're watching on TV, doing their homework, and those types of things. Then the next suit is the wild suit. And this really is kind of those life-changing events. And um, with the cards in this suit is it's definitely situational, and you may or may not, be dealing with them, and so they can be set aside until the card actually applies to you and your situation. So things like caring for that extended family, if there's a new baby in your life, those I like this, the glitch in the matrix or daily disruption. We actually have one person who isn't attending tonight because they had a daily disruption and a glitch in their matrix. So it's kind of appropriate, funny that they showed up. And thinking about like home renovations, loss of a job, money problems, moving, new job, all these different things. Um, when they happen, someone really has to take the lead and deal with them. It doesn't mean that that person is solely responsible for every aspect of that event, but there needs to be someone who takes the lead on it and then gets input from the other partner in the family. Now we get to that unicorn space. And this is, as I've already mentioned, it's where you want to be able to express your passion and purpose that drives you to be the best version of yourself. The unicorn space can help kind of nurture you, which is something that we all need. And so for the unicorn space, what this card does, it looks at carving out time for yourself to do an activity that brings you joy. And that can look different for all people. But in the deck, there's two unicorn space cards, one for each partner in the family, and they need to be making time for that unicorn space and actually, carrying out that task. So when you're playing fair play, or implementing this system. The objective is to discuss a new way to think and to talk about your domestic life. And the outcome should be time to recommit to meaningful relationships, that valuable self-care, and the interests that define you outside of being a parent, and to help you to become happy as individuals and as a couple. Once you decide to implement fair play, and so I've provided just a PDF printable version of the cards. You can always purchase the cards if you just go to the Fair Play website. It's fairplay.org. You can purchase them. I think they're about $10, so they're not too expensive. But once you've decided and kind of committed that you want to implement this system, you want to just kind of set some dates for a run. So usually about 7 days. And then you want to assess your situation and decide, what maybe you need to focus on, and what needs to maybe what really needs to change in your family situation. So there's 7 ground or rules on how to play fair play. So I'll go through these. The first is to set some ground rules. And so those are to be able to listen to each other, and thoughtfully discuss everything that it takes to run a home. You want to consider your tone, brevity, and word choice as you're sharing information and your perspectives. You want to explore a new way to collaboratively work together as a team to become more efficient and create fairness in your ecosystem. You really want to value each other's time equally. And also, when you're doing this, keep your phone off the table so that you're able to focus on each other. Whoops. Um, so the first thing you want to do is customize your deck. So you have your cards, and what you're going to do is really just determine which cards are important and will benefit your family. So you and your partner will go through each of the cards, read what it says, and then you're going to create a non-negotiable and a daily grinds pile. What's cute about these cards is, if you can see, let me get this right here, and you might not be able to. There's a little coffee cup in the corner on the cards, and this indicates the daily grind. And so the daily grind is things that have to happen, that happen on a regular basis. And most likely, like once you get to dividing up the cards, like you're not going to hold the daily grind cards forever. So you'll go through what's non-negotiable and what are the daily grinds. The next pile is going to be cards that both of you value. And then the next pile will be cards that maybe just one person values. And then you'll kind of come up with the total of the cards. Then you're going to plan and organize how you're going to individually um, um, use the cards, kind of what your strategy is. And so you can download the kind of you have the sheet that I gave to you, so you can maybe make 2 copies of it, one for a set of cards to use and one just to make notes on. And couple different strategies. You can just write on the copy of the cards, initialing the kind of the tasks that you're separately holding, and then create a list, or you can create a list or columns on a whiteboard or chalkboard or journal to keep track of that. And then the other thing you want to figure out is how you're going to track the cards, like who's doing what. I'm speeding up a little bit because I'm running out of time. And so when you're dealing in the cards, you want to think about the conception, the planning, and the execution. And this is just kind of a refresher for that information. The conception, kind of assessing the need and defining the tasks that will meet the need, kind of then planning to create that action plan for what's required, and then the execution, so what needs to be done to get the job done. So when you're dealing them, you're going to first go to the pile, the non-negotiable and the daily grinds pile. Consider the individual capabilities and the availability of each person, and then you'll just divide it up, who's going to do what. And then you'll just do the same for both the cards that both of you value, and then the cards that one person values. Most likely that the person who values that card is going to keep that card. There's also cards that are identified as the happiness trio, and that is self-care, adult friendships, and the unicorn space. And so each partner should have one of those. And then the wild cards are most likely going to be situation specific, and so you might just set those aside if none of those apply to you. And then remembering that minimum standard of care, kind of talking about what that is for the task, and then trusting that the person holding the card is going to be able to meet that for you. And then you want to claim your unicorn space. And so thinking about, what is it that you want to be able to do to claim that space? And then really just discuss with your partner what that means. And then once you get all of that done, you're going to take a new vow. And so you now have a system in place that prioritizes collaboration. You're able to clarify your roles and responsibilities and expectations and enhance efficiency and harmony in your home. And so you're going to make a vow to follow through, to communicate, to collaborate, and then to involve the entire family in the important tasks of caring for the home and for each person within the family. So that was quick. We've only got a couple minutes left. I want to open it up for any questions that anybody might have. You can just unmute since we have a small group. And then while you're doing that, if you could do the evaluation, just either through the QR code or I will put the link in the chat for the evaluation. But if anybody has any questions or comments, you can either unmute or put the question in the chat.
Can you hear me, Lorna?
Yeah.
This is Frankie Nelson. My camera is off right now. But quick question. I like this idea. Is there like a version of this that is like high school friendly? I came in late, but I'm thinking I teach family consumer sciences. And this seems really cool, like something I could do like in a classroom, like high school kids, you think about your day, apply this to your life. Is there a high school version or something?
There is. There's actually a high school and a middle school version. It's called
Oh,
Home
awesome.
Equity. And
Okay.
if you go to the fairplay.org website, you should be able to
Uh-huh.
find it, and it's free to download. If you
Ooh.
can't find it, just shoot me an email and I'll find it for you because I've downloaded all of it. And
Okay.
it's pretty good. So
Okay.
yes. So
Perfect.
I saw you had registered and I was like, oh, I gotta tell her about that. Because I haven't actually dug into it too much, but it's a good resource. So
Cool. Okay, thank you.
yeah. All right, any other questions? I put the evaluation in the chat, if you have time to do that. As we're wrapping up, I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight. When I started out, I said this is a favorite topic of mine. So I was looking forward to being able to present this topic. I hope that you have picked up a few tips and ideas and consider implementing this program or kind of digging into it a little bit deeper to be able to uh, just learn a little bit more about it. So the Fair Play Policy Institute has uh, um, a great website, and so there's a lot of good information on there that you can utilize to learn a little bit more about this. I'm going to stop sharing here. Right. All right. So if nobody has any more questions, I want to just thank you again. Our webinar next week is about protecting yourself from fraud. And so quite a few people have registered for it, but if you haven't, hope you consider it.